I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Jules Saints. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Alan Gallant. We're here to review the movie Godzilla Minus One. Starting about this movie, 10 to 15 million in budget, box office 113-6 million. Jesus Christ.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's like $1 billion.
So, guys, when did you first see? Because it's fairly recent. When did you guys first see Godzilla Minus One?
A few months ago.
Yeah, I actually never. I went to watch it when it first came on Netflix, and I never completed it until in the last couple days.
Yeah.
That's been it. When it first came out, I wanted to go see it in the theaters. It just didn't turn out that way. Yeah, it didn't.
Have you seen any of the footage? I'm sorry.
No, I would still love to see it on a big screen. I mean, obviously, it would be spectacular, and I have no doubt about it, either in the black and white or the color. The only thing
I was going to ask you, have you seen any of the black and white footage?
Yes, I have. Absolutely. It's wonderful.
Unbelievable.
Very evocative. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even better.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I watched the color one today. The only thing I really would prefer to see is the one that's not overdubbed. The one, just it's still in Japanese. That's I mean, I've seen some of the scenes in just the straight Japanese, but again, Netflix has it overdubbed. So
yeah,
it's good. I mean, it's a well done overdub.
Tonight was the first night I watched it dubbed.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I'd just seen the subtitle version.
Yeah.
Because I was lazy and had to sort of look at other things occasionally.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Sure.
read the whole movie.
Yeah.
But and the dubbing's okay.
It is okay, actually.
They do a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have no basis for saying this, so I will. I think it's probably somewhat due to anime, but I think the auditory science of coming up with a credible performance dubbing is a language that had to be learned by the field of acting, and I think it's so it's not overwrought, so it's not all of these sins, because I think one of the problems with dubbing for a long time was just the performances sucked. I mean, they just weren't.
Plus,
very good.
The sync was terrible too.
The sync was terrible, and I don't know if there's any AI that goes on to maybe make the lips form
maybe a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I got done watching like 3 or 4 episodes of Squid Game, the new season of it, and I legitimately forgot it was dubbed. It just the voice talent was that on the money.
Yeah.
And the performances seemed that keenly in sync with the faces and the physical size of the characters and so on.
Yeah, it's an art form on its own. It absolutely is, and has become much more of one in recent years.
Yeah, I do all that in Texas.
Yeah.
Voice in Texas.
Yeah, the voice actor who voices 456, the main character in Squid Game, won in the first season, second season. He also voiced for that actor for Cowboy Bebop. So,
okay.
So
Well, now I've got one anime connection, right?
No,
she does a character in Full Metal Panic, Full Metal Alchemist.
Okay.
Lucy Christian.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you again, because I'm proud.
Sorry. I'm forgetful. I'm old. But
you're also supple and giving, yielding, yet firm.
Orange firm.
Sorry. What did you guys think of the? Because the beginning of this is very different than the original in a sense. What did you guys think of that?
I thought they did great, innovative things in this movie for the budget. I mean, the special effects are incredible. They don't overdo anything, you know, and they don't underdo anything. It's just wonderful cinematography, and they pay homage to the original, of course. In particular, the shot where Gojira has the train in his mouth.
Yeah, the whole train thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And what a thrilling thing to see inside the train she's
yeah,
on.
yeah,
And that's just one thrill after another, down to her getting in the water, bobbing up, and bam,
yeah,
comes a big section of the train right beside her.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Really well done.
What a terrifying sequence. And you know, when Man of Steel came out, everybody was talking about. I hadn't seen the movie, but I read pamphlets, and everybody was talking about the excessive violence in the film, and how the city was like being extra destroyed. You know, unlike just partially destroyed in the Marvel things, they like really,
Yeah, they were
level Metropolis,
sections of the city.
9/11 style, just madness, and how many people were dying in that. But the movie didn't really kind of take the time, apparently, to countenance, from what I understand, that loss, just the human loss in those sequences was just horrific, and I just sort of rather blasé about it. Even though the movie doesn't stop and get all mourny and weepy, boy, the attack on what is it? What's the town? Starts with a G, I think. The main city that's attacked.
Yeah.
Ginza.
Ginza. Yeah.
The attack on Ginza. Talk about death.
Yeah.
I mean, there's real collateral human lives.
It's a sensation. Every step he takes is, that's oblivion for somebody.
He's killing people.
Yeah.
And in that attack, when the guy's around the corner and his lady friend's getting, God knows what, it occurred to me just the glass, the incredible damage from the glass alone.
Oh yeah.
Just would have shredded anything in its path.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. With this movie, what for me makes it a masterpiece, and it is. I think it's Toho's masterpiece.
Oh yeah.
Is the fact that the depth of the actual total story. It's not, and the symbolism of Godzilla is, in total relief in this film. In terms of its intention of what being in post-war Japan or in any war-torn country is like, and why the war doesn't end when the war ends. And Godzilla is the personification of that specter of humankind's inability to not destroy itself. And then, and that's what happens. I mean, this thing comes out of the depths because human beings, disturbing it first, and then nurturing it with nuclear energy, and creating something even more terrible, which is exactly what the advancements of warfare do. It nurtures disaster, and it was always an interesting parable, I think, an interesting angle of the Godzilla story, coming from the point of view of a people who experienced firsthand firestorms and nuclear disaster.
An entirely new brand, new level of martial horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this personalizes it. It's this thing is there, this specter of all this is there, but it's also this personal story about guilt and survivor's guilt, and what do I do with this, and how do I rebuild a life, and all of these things that also have very much to do with the realities of war.
Yeah. It's sort of good.
Right. No, maybe we'll talk about it later. I'm just thinking about the effects that horrible disasters have on a nation and how a nation processes it, and political events I've witnessed this evening in a speech and tomorrow. And I know that's not something Joel probably wants to get into, but I just can't help but come back to that when I'm, thinking about just horrible, nation-rending disasters, and how do we process that?
Right.
And
It's true.
and
Even
this seems to
whether
be
that disaster is wrought upon us, or whether we visited upon ourselves, because that's another thing about the Japanese experience. It was visited upon them not
by an outsider.
entirely by outside forces. their own reliance on their leadership and everything else that turned,
not
bad.
surrendering.
It was part of that whole thing, and that's part of the guilt of it too, I think.
Yeah.
You hear references to, so on.
I think to get into like a little actual history with Japan and World War II, because in this movie they do a little actual history with the kamikaze pilots, but Japan also had kamikaze torpedoes too. This is something you can learn about in any movie about the USS Indianapolis.
Now, what were kamikaze torpedoes?
They would have a man to direct the torpedo.
No.
Yes, yeah, they had this in World War II on their submarines. They had a man go into the torpedo, and he would steer the torpedo. It was for short range only.
Kidding me.
I'm not kidding you.
So this was, of course, before they had heat-seeking missiles and things where they could alter the course of the missile.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Because
only
weird.
Ironically, I think only a culture that so fetishized honor could imagine such a thing as the kamikaze.
And the thing of it is too, they did not use a manned torpedo on the USS Indianapolis. The commander of the Japanese submarine said, "No, we'll use a regular one," because they figured they were close enough in range to use regular ones.
Sure.
So they were. Because you can't. Yeah. So but that's a history of Japan that they used kamikaze pilots, they had kamikaze torpedoes, and this story is based upon a kamikaze pilot who chooses not to take his own life,
which was also more common than you might imagine.
Yeah.
Because it's an act of insanity. It's a personification of the insanity of war. I mean, obviously, in the moment, people, culturally are going to embrace the act as one of honor rather than shirking it as dishonor. And you see the experience of people reacting to his not performing an act of suicidal service by vilifying him at the beginning of the movie. It's part of his guilt.
Yeah.
Which is resolved at the end, fortunately, in a way that I think is human. It lends a humanity to the whole idea.
Yeah, because there's also a love story within this too, just like there was in the original, which I think is really smart and really good.
It's much deeper in this one, I think. It's, the exploration Godzilla is there, but Godzilla is not. He's a specter of all of this stuff, and in a sort of a manifestation of all these very, very human things that are happening.
The main love story in the original, I remember, just comes from the American version, which is Raymond Burr and the craft services table.
Yeah.
Pass the rolls.
Oh my god. Yeah, in the original, for those who don't know, there was a love triangle where the doctor who had like an eye patch who made the stuff that ultimately destroyed Godzilla because it would kill any underwater like fish or creature.
Mm-hmm.
Or Esther Williams.
Yeah, or Esther Williams. It's why Esther Williams retired. No,
That's right.
So there's there's also another guy in the movie that she's in love with. So there's two guys in love with the same woman, and the one guy with the eye patch goes down. He ends up, kamikazing himself in a sense to kill Godzilla. So you're right. This movie does pay homage to the original in a different way.
Right.
And I love the line too, where the one guy who survived an incident too tells him, "Live. I want you to live. I don't want you to die." I think
I like the way they handle that too. The way that they sort of they flash back to explain exactly what happened, but after the fact, he whispers something in his ear. Now, most of us that are familiar with the original story and so on, like that, we're hoping, that this is what he's whispering in his ear. If you haven't seen the movie before, and we suspect that this is what he's whispering in his ear, but we don't know that until it's finally revealed at the end that the guy has designed an ejection seat and has finally said to him in an ultimate redemptive act, live.
Yeah.
No, you're better off living. This is the ultimate rejection of the sort of death
that
cult
twisted bit of the Bushido.
Yeah, it's a death cult, warfare and the honor of war and the glory and all that sort of thing, and the shame if you don't die in certain situations. It's a death cult.
Yeah.
And so this is a rejection of that, finally.
Now, in every Godzilla adaptation, Godzilla has generally, I think it's lightning that regenerates him, but in this movie, not so much. He regenerates all by himself.
Yes.
What did you guys think of that? Pretty neat.
Much more Horatio Alger. He's a self-starter.
That's right. Self-made monster
by his own bootstraps. Yeah, I mean, I would have had guilt or shame be the things that brought him back. Just a good dose of Catholic guilt.
Yes.
Really brought.
You don't hear about Shinto around his huge neck. You
don't hear about Shinto guilt very often. You and the Shinto guilt, please. I've had it with that. I thought it was good. I think it certainly lends itself to one of the most spectacular transformations as the tail is, popping up and so on. What a way to put old wine in a new bottle. Really make, when I look at the comic book art of Alex Ross, you familiar with Alex Ross?
I am not.
Really? He did Kingdom Come, and he did Marvels, and some of those beautiful painted covers like you might see on the Flash Gordon re-release that was almost photorealistic. Okay. That's Alex Ross. I think he's the greatest living comic book artist, and when I would look at Alex Ross's stuff, I would think, oh, so that's what it really looked like. And when I look at this, I think, oh, so that's what it really looked like. That's what, and that's high praise, when they pulled that off.
Well, when you can take special effects and you can make an audience feel like, oh yeah, like you say, that's what it looks like.
Like it's not an effect, it's storytelling.
We love the original guy in the rubber suit and the whole 9 yards. That's great, but wow, here's this.
Yeah, and you stop. In this, I think the articulation of the character of Godzilla, just the body work, the movement, the face, the eyes, everything. I don't even, the idea. You talked about budget when we started this. I didn't even think about the budget when I was watching it. Right. I didn't even think about.
No, it seems very lavish.
Special effects.
Anyway, yeah,
I didn't think these were special effects. I just thought, wow. This is what, and the ocean scenes where it's head, it's chasing them and so on.
Yep.
I really thought, ooh, this is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to them for whatever kind of primal details in the perception of these things they got right.
Yeah, and sort of animal mechanics and all the things that they.
Oh my God! Again, the Ginza scene where it just the physics feel right. The physics of his size seem to matter.
Yeah,
I loved it.
And also his design is close enough to the original. That's another homage. The big, thick, heavy bottom, the more articulate top and hands, and
honestly, the fact the head is so small comparatively makes him that much more forbidding.
Yes,
because it's less human in its proportions.
Mm-hmm.
It seems dumber, which just means angrier.
Right.
There's less to reason with. The brain's got to be smaller, even though it's like 8 times the size of a human's.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. You guys touched upon the survival element of this movie, which I agree. They take the time to show you post-devastation, not just of the war, but of Godzilla itself. You guys touched upon this. And they do a really good job of showing you that devastation of what the monster left in the wake. One of the most unsung things, too, is the survival of the woman who you think is dead, who the guy's in love with. He wants revenge now. He has a purpose now to get the creature, which I think is a really good driving point for the monster movie itself. Not to be afraid to, he's not afraid to die anymore. He feels, okay, you know what? I'm willing to do it now. But the other guy says to him, no, I want you to live.
That's right. He's not afraid to die, but he has permission to live.
Right. And I think that's such a great storytelling act here, especially when you look at all the devastation that has happened with the war, with the post-war, and with the post-Godzilla stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Really take the time to let the audience agree with the people, to relate to them.
There is a lot of human in this movie.
There is.
Human to Godzilla ratio.
The redemption scene at the end where he realizes that she's alive as well, the telegram thing. Again, they do that so beautifully. It's like, we're not going to reveal to you what's in there. Maybe you can guess, okay? But we're not going to tell you for sure until this moment. We're going to wait until the fruit is ripe, and then we're going to let you pick it. And that's what happens with this redemption scene, so that it does not come off treacly. It does not come off sappy or syrupy at all. And it could, very much so, and it doesn't. So
I know sometimes art will imitate life in a heavy way. Do you think for the next potential Godzilla, because I don't know when they'll set it, like the next movie, do you think they'll use, like, for example, maybe it'd be bad taste, but like the LA fires for the setting of a Godzilla movie?
I don't think so. I think if they make it like this is a Japanese story.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is, and not only that, but it's a prequel anyway. It's going back again. It's going even previous to the 50, 51, whatever.
Yeah, this is in the 40s. Yeah.
This is in 1945 and 1946, 47, in that era. That era, as they're rebuilding parts of various cities in Japan, including Tokyo and so on, and from the firestorms. Which is why you've got these people living in shanty towns all over the place at the beginning of the movie, because a lot of cities have been reduced to rubble. The firestorms were actually more devastating than the nuclear blasts in many of the cities. They decided they didn't want to touch certain cities with that. They went through this whole bizarre and very dark decision-making process about which cities are going to get the bomb, and all this sort of just screwed up stuff. I mean, it is. War is screwed up. But this is sort of I mean, this whole thing is about that. Again, I keep coming back to that because what is more human than struggling with violence versus peace? We do it all the time. We do it all the time.
Yeah, I think in terms of, like, what are they going to do next? Alan Moore, I think when he was really getting tired of things like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which compared to a lot of modern movies now looks like a classic.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how much better that movie has gotten in light of what's been made since then. But Alan Moore said, not everything has to be a movie. And so a cousin to that is, even though it's based on the first film in a series, not everything has to be a series. And maybe this movie is stronger and the genre is stronger by leaving it alone. And it's just a standalone thing. Because a lot of the Godzilla movies is a real law of diminishing returns.
There is.
And they make some interesting stuff. But thinking that you can get all of the political impact and import, this movie is really about a slice in time. And that's, I think, what keeps it from having, it's what keeps it feeling legitimate. And not that the other films aren't legitimate, I'm not saying that, but they are pulp. And this feels like literature that just happens to have this giant creature in it.
I mean, they did get to a point, Toho did get to a point, what I call the nadir, when they had Godzilla drop kicking his opponents by sliding around on his tail and having baby Godzilla,
and stuff like that.
All of that sort of thing. That was kind of a nadir in terms of the
but there's good like Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla, Gallant, stuff like that. But it's still pulp.
It is.
It's lost its political kind of oomph. And so, I would rather these guys just made another movie. Give the same ensemble another movie. Or if they are going to do a reboot, I got a crazy notion, just because it also involves kind of a big man in suit sort of thing, even though it wouldn't have to have that. I wonder what these guys would do, given the weight that they're able to bring to things, with Curse of the Demon.
No.
Wow. Yeah.
No.
An interesting thought. I mean, it might be terrible. I don't know, but it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, especially bringing to it the kind of Curse of the Demon was kind of that kind of a script too. You don't, the especially the original cut is more about what's happening with these people, and less about showing this horrible being. That kind of thing.
And the horrible being's almost an embarrassment when you get to those moments. It's kind of like, get back to the humans. And Carswell. I want to see more Carswell.
No.
I'm trying to think of a movie for Toho to do that would be. I don't know if they would want to do. Well,
do a remake of Arthur.
Instead of
Godzilla,
a giant Liza Minnelli.
Well, I was remembering a really interesting Japanese movie called Battle Royal. Instead of doing Battle Royal, do a serial killer in Japan. Modern day Tokyo. That would be something I'd watch for sure.
Battle Royal Dano.
Something like that. But yeah,
there'll never be another like it.
Or do a period. They did one period piece. Do a period piece about the samurai. Why not?
Sure.
Yeah. But I like the way they leave the end of this is very true to the tradition of Godzilla too. It's like he's not dead; he's just been knocked back for a while, folks. Which is the same thing in terms of the war is over, but hey, around the corner, there might be another one coming up.
Another movie that deals in light and peace and stuff like that, and life and war is the movie I was reviewing, Princess Mononoke. It preaches the same message in a lot of ways.
Just a moment. Keep.
Yeah, but it preaches the same message in a lot of ways. You have a character who gets cursed by killing a demon, a god animal that was turned into a demon by human bullets.
Uh-huh.
And he seeks out the forest spirit to cure him. And it doesn't cure him right away. He goes through all these trials and tribulations, but he keeps saying to people, like, why can't the forest and humans live together? Why
Right.
can't we live as one? And that's something that is really good. I said last night, it's the best male protagonist Miyazaki's ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. It really is.
Yeah. There's an element to that too, where you've done this thing, and it's not entirely a good thing that you've done, as it turns out, and you have to pay a price for it. You have to have penance, you have to go through things in order to make things right, or to balance things out, and that's a very classic thing in certain stories, folk tales, fairy tales, and so on.
Yeah. And that's the thing too with Godzilla. The fact that they added, I think they learned a lot from the previous Godzilla movies that were rebooted as the original. Like, I think the two best moments of the original and the 1984 remake of the first movie.
Yeah.
In the 80s, they remade Godzilla with Raymond Burr again, though Raymond Burr was older.
Yes.
But with this, they take out Raymond Burr. They completely go, nope, we're not going that route. We're doing a lot different Godzilla. Yeah, he's mean. He's evil.
Yeah.
They do pay tribute to Raymond the character, with the anchors being on top of the roof and they get wiped out. It's okay. But yeah, it's really well done from a beginning to end standpoint, because you do feel for these characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I want to feel in a lot of movies. Hey, I want to, whether it's anime, whether it's live action, hey, I want to feel your characters. That's something they don't, to me, they wanted to do with Halloween, the recent Halloween trilogy, but it doesn't come across good, because you don't start off where you should in the 70s.
Uh-huh. Yeah, to keep it rooted in the whys and the wherefores and so on, and what the original and ultimate effect of this horror is on the people.
If you want to have where people are going to feel the after effects of Michael Myers, the way sort of Godzilla in a sense, but not to that devastational route.
Sure.
Is have when Laurie starts graduating, she's thinking about, well, Annie and Linda would have graduated, Bob would have graduated.
Mm-hmm.
She's thinking about, she doesn't just see the people there. She sees the 3 empty chairs
People that aren't there, right?
Right, and that's something they could have played with, and they don't.
Right.
It's that sense of loss. Mm-hmm. They're trying to preach sense of loss without actually showing it, because they
making the investment in actual storytelling to make that have some actual weight.
Yeah. I think that's the thing with the best slashers. With the originals, you feel the weight of the first murder. You're whether if it's a whodunit like Friday the 13th, you're thinking about, okay, those 2 camp counselors, they weren't scared of that killer, well, because it was somebody. They weren't scared of it right away. They said they were scared of getting caught. So it was somebody they respected.
All right.
With Halloween, it's like you're thinking about the murder of Judith Myers. This guy who was 6 years old when he murdered his sister was now an adult.
Right.
And he had no problem knifing his sister.
Right.
And it's that thought throughout the movie. You don't have to flash back. But to me, when you're time jumping with this franchise, you need to pull it back so the audience feels that effect.
Yeah, you need depth, character development that speaks to those things, and then you, as an audience, you become invested in these people rather than having them be props for the next jump scare.
Yeah, I think that's the thing they do so well in this movie is you get this big group of people who have survived, World War II. You see and then you see the guy who survived World War II because of being a coward, and Godzilla because of being a coward, and then he's thinking about that guilt
Yeah.
You guys talked about. But then you see the after effect of Godzilla 2, and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, this is something on a different level altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what makes this movie so good too. It's like they build that, they make you feel empathy.
It's a historically it's very real stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that war culture in Japan left a lot of people with survivor's guilt, left a lot of people's lives devastated, their families destroyed, their homes destroyed, all of this sort of stuff that they explore in this movie and how that affects people psychologically. There were guys who got into those planes and with every intention of being a kamikaze and honoring their ancestors and whatever they were told that this was going to be, and they didn't do it. That was a real thing.
Did you learn about the kamikaze torpedoes in history class too, Al?
I didn't. I know. I think that was a Google thing. I think I went down a rabbit hole because I was interested in kamikaze in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what that. Yeah, I learned about kamikaze pilots.
Yeah, that's my former history teacher in 5th grade. He taught us about. We were learning about World War II. He goes, well, the Japanese had kamikaze pilots, but they also had kamikaze torpedoes, and we're like, wait, say that again?
Yeah.
And because when you think planes, you think, okay, that makes sense because you could take the controls.
Right.
Like, okay, how'd they do the torpedo thing? Well, they armed the torpedo, they put the guy in it, and he steered it. And it's like, are you serious? It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I did forget your bacon.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's like,
I got double hamburger.
Hey, Julie.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going. Tired, and we got a crap ton of snow. My dad said he cleaned off the driveway before he come to get me, and there's probably several inches there now on the ground again.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, all due respect, I had to move away from the snow belt, but I lived up in Maine until I was in my early 40s.
I'm ready to move away from here too. I'm sick of this white shit. And someone keeps singing.
I'll tell you. There's not much. I won't say that for a non-native.
Yes.
There's not necessarily a lot to be said for East Tennessee. For a native, it's totally different. But I'll say this: the weather's pretty good. It is starting to get a little hotter in the summer. You're not going to be able to avoid that. But the winters, this is the coldest winter we've had in a while, and it's still not that bad.
The Maine winters are much milder than they were, say, when I was a kid. Absolutely, they are.
Really?
Yes. It was not unusual to have stretches of time in December and January where it went 20 below. And you still have a few days like that occasionally, but these last few times that I've gone up to Maine in particular for Christmas, it's been well above zero each time.
Yeah.
Much milder.
The only time I was there was around New Year's in 2000. And it was like being on the set of The Thing.
Yeah, it's Arctic. It was, and it can still be that way, but not as much, not as frequently. And we also don't typically have, although occasionally we get the the blizzard bombs still, but nothing like when I was a child. Holy.
That's what we're in right now, like a blizzard bomb.
Yeah, we had in 69. I don't remember 62. That was a big year for blizzard bombs too. But in 69, I remember this. The snow had been stacked up halfway up the telephone poles when they went through and plowed. And they had bucket loaders do the first plow job.
That is one of the only storytelling elements that did not, and by necessity could not really appear on Dark Shadows, that was geographically appropriate, and I think would have been atmospheric as hell.
Oh yeah, you just couldn't do it. It's too expensive an effect. You'd have to have sets covered in snow and things,
Because think about this. Well, it would have been the year before. It would have been, Christmas of '68 and January of '69. But that's when you're dealing with the Quentin haunting.
Yes.
And your alternative is that out there,
Mm-hmm.
and how difficult it would be just to get to the old house.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't have Matthew Morgan around.
No,
to
Mrs. Johnson with a snow shovel, right?
Yes.
Well, I think they could have did it in a sense, because I do remember another show that was dealt in sets was a show called Step by Step. I remember the character Sasha Mitchell played Cody Lambert coming in. He was covered in snow, like he was like his hair was wet. He had snow on his shoulders.
Yeah, they actually once in a while they had somebody that had come in out of the rain. I think they had Christopher Jennings coming out of the rain at one point, and so they'd actually sprinkled his trench coat with water or something. But they rarely even did that.
Yeah,
they Philip Todd coming out, but that was a different situation. But I'm just thinking about things like the snow with a building. You're talking about up the telephone pole.
Sure.
And how the snow goes into the crevices of the building in the Overlook.
Yeah.
In The Shining, and just that the building is dwarfed by
the
snow.
Or with the atmosphere this creates in a movie like Storm of the Century. It's the whole thing, and it's just the whole vibe.
Yeah. I give this movie a 10, guys. What do you give it?
Oh,
10.
It's Toho's masterpiece, as I said before. It is
Godzilla Minus One.
I actually think it should have done much better at various international awards than it did. But again, like comedies, monster movies don't typically do really well at awards ceremonies. So.
Oh my God.
I gotta be difficult.
Yeah, you gotta be difficult.
You're difficult for me sometimes. I gotta be difficult in your life. That's how it works.
Yeah.
You made it snow.
Oh, it's his fault now. Uh-oh.
Yeah,
it is his fault. He sung "Let It Snow."
I get the
Joel.
Yes.
I want to look at this week. You want to look at anything this week?
Let's do a Dark Shadows episode tomorrow night. What do you guys say?
Woohoo!
That sounds good.
He sounds excited.
What will we do?
I'm gonna pick one totally.
Oh, let me pick a number.
Okay, go ahead. You pick
What's the numbers range
from 1 to 1,125.
Do 596.
Okay, we'll do 596.
I don't know what that one is, but
I don't either. I gotta go look.
Sounds like a good number.
End of Adam, maybe.
I think we're getting close to. I think we might even be. I think we're in Angelique as a vampire at that point in time. I believe.
Oh, sweet! We're gonna watch that one.
Yes.
Let's go. 596. Let's go.
Okay, so tomorrow night, episode 596. Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows book about is going to be in the description box. Link to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel, College Sport After Dark, is going to be in the description box. Sorry, did you guys want to add anything? I'm so sorry.
No, I think we pretty much got it out. And there was not one reference to Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh my God.
You guys have a good night. Take care. Bye.